When archaeologists at George Washington's Mount Vernon estate lifted a section of the elegant brick floor in the mansion's west parlor one summer morning, they expected to find the usual surprises of everyday 18th century life, fragments of pottery, nails, perhaps shards of wine glass. Instead, they uncovered something extraordinary, a small, carefully dug pit containing 2 dark green glass bottles, each sealed with its original cork and still holding dozens of whole cherries. The fruits, preserved for nearly 2.5 centuries, remained plump inside their bottles, still exuding a faint cherry blossom aroma when first uncorked in the on-site laboratory. This remarkable find, dating back to the years before the Revolution, offers an unparalleled window into food preservation, transatlantic trade, and the daily lives of everyone at the estate, from the Virginia gentry to the enslaved gardeners who tended Washington's orchards. The discovery took place in late June of 2025 as part of a privately funded restoration effort overseen by the Mount Vernon Ladies Association. Principal archaeologist Jason Burroughs had carefully planned to reopen sections of the mansion floor, originally laid in the early 1770s. The west parlor, where Washington welcomed important guests, featured a distinctive brick floor installed shortly before his second term as president. As the masons lifted those worn bricks, they revealed a shallow cavity against the south wall. Standing upright and side by side were the 2 bottles, dark green, slender-shouldered, and unmistakably colonial. Transported immediately to the estate's archaeology lab, the bottles underwent non-invasive X-ray imaging, revealing dozens of round objects floating in liquid. Closer inspection showed them to be cherries roughly 3/4 of an inch in diameter, complete with stems and pits. Over the following days, conservators stabilized the glass by gradually adjusting the humidity around the vessels, then carefully drained the amber fluid-likely groundwater that seeped in as the corks aged. When 1 vial of liquid was poured into a sterile beaker, the preserved cherries spilled out, still firm, their interiors a nearly perfect relic of pre-Revolutionary War Mount Vernon. Botanical specialists at the Smithsonian's Museum Conservation Institute later confirmed that the cherry's DNA matched early colonists' favored varieties, the sweet yellow, transparent cherry and the hardy Richmond cherry, both cultivated in Virginia's orchards. These varieties appear in Washington's own correspondence, where he annually requested new seedlings from England and Pennsylvania nurseries to restock his garden terraces. The presence of preserved cherries thus connects directly to estate records describing orchard management and fruit harvesting in the 1600s and early 1700s. Food preservation was a perennial challenge in colonial America. Historians and 18th century cookbooks describe several methods: drying, sugar canning, and burying produce to maintain cool, stable temperatures. In her influential household guide, midwife and cookery writer Hannah Glass recommended burying dry fruits in sealed containers to slow spoilage, particularly for delicate berries. Mount Vernon's pit appears to have followed this very advice. Hundreds of berries were placed in glass vessels, corked and interred beneath the brick floor, where underground temperatures hovered around 50 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, slowing enzymatic decay and mold growth. The social context of this preservation method is equally rich. At the time of Washington's death in 1799, more than 300 enslaved people lived and worked at Mount Vernon, including specialized gardeners who pruned trees, propagated seedlings, and ensured abundant harvests. Their labor made possible the estate's reputation for lavish hospitality and experimental agriculture. The buried cherries speak not only to Washington's personal tastes, fondness for cherries is legendary, but also to the expertise and knowledge of the enslaved horticulturalists who supplied his table. As news of the find spread, Mount Vernon prepared a multifaceted public exhibit. Curators plan to display the bottles in the mansion's recreated dining room, surrounded by period silverware and porcelain. Interactive stations will allow visitors to inhale modern recreations of cherry blossom fragrance based on chemical analysis of volatile compounds preserved inside the bottle. Taste test demonstrations will pair colonial-style cherry preserves with artisanal bread, echoing 18th century menus. Garden interpreters will demonstrate how to plant and graft heirloom cherry varieties, while culinary historians give live talks on historic preservation techniques. Historians have also contextualized the find within George Washington's broader agricultural ambitions. After leaving public office, Washington devoted his later years to enhancing Mount Vernon's productivity and sustainability. He experimented with crop rotation, soil amendments, and new breeds of livestock. In that light, the buried cherries can be seen as part of his scientific curiosity, deliberate effort to refine food storage methods for a large household, and visiting dignitaries. Moreover, Washington's correspondence reveals his ongoing fascination with horticulture. He subscribed to London nursery catalogs, exchanged seeds with fellow planters, and sent fruit blanketing to friends in Philadelphia and beyond. Yet the story does not belong solely to Washington. Oral histories collected by Mount Vernon's team include memories passed down by descendants of the estate's enslaved community. One storyteller recalled a family legend about buried pots of jam, hidden by enslaved cooks to ensure small comforts for their kin during harsh winters. Though such tales cannot be taken as literal testimony, they enrich the narrative by suggesting that both free and enslaved workers on the plantation might have collaborated in creating hidden stores of food private reserves meant to safeguard against lean times. Science continues to unlock the pit's secrets. Smithsonian chemists are analyzing sugar crystals clinging to the fruit skin to identify whether the cherries were coated in refined cane sugar imported from the Caribbean or in maple syrup sugar harvested on site. Microbial sequencing of any surviving microorganisms aims to reconstruct the decay-inhibiting fungal and bacterial communities present in the sealed bottles. Even minor traces of pollen or dust grains could reveal nearby plantings or the season of burial more precisely than historical gardening logs allow. Meanwhile, ground-penetrating radar surveys of the surrounding lawn are underway to search for other buried features, perhaps additional storage pits or undiscovered cellars. Mount Vernon's research director, Dr. Karen Solari, suggests similar hidden caches may exist beneath other floor sections, especially in outbuildings used for food preparation. She notes that the 18th century kitchen wing once featured a ramped earth cellar, and that thousands of artifacts from the servants' quarters have been found in previous digs, hinting at unknown subterranean spaces. The Mount Vernon Ladies Association, which funds much of the ongoing research and conservation, plans a formal ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Cherry Pit exhibit next spring. Educational materials will be translated into multiple languages, reflecting the global interest in George Washington's legacy and now in Mount Vernon's cherries. A traveling version of the exhibit will tour historical societies in Virginia, New York, and Massachusetts, bringing the story of preserved fruit to wider audiences. For many visitors, however, the most moving moment arrives when they encounter the bottles themselves. Encased in climate-controlled glass, the two slender vials sparkle as if newly filled. A discreet audio guide describes their recovery, how, brick by brick, soil by soil, the pit emerged from beneath the thick floor, and how, centuries later, the cherry's scent bridged past and present. A hush falls over the crowd as a single staff member lifts an inner lid to release a gentle breeze of cherry fragrance, transporting museum-goers back to Washington's parlor on a spring dawn. Those who study the archives have also found a curious letter in Washington's own hand, dated 1774, in which he notes, "My cherries were preserved most poorly this year. I have resolved to inquire of Mrs. Glass her manner of storing by earth, and shall thereafter commit a few bottles to test her efficacy." While no direct record confirms he buried bottles, the coincidence is tantalizing. The newly unearthed cherries may represent the fruit of that very experiment, validating Glass's 18th century counsel and Washington's own pursuit of agricultural knowledge. As the sun sets over the Potomac River, the two bottles of preserved cherries sit illuminated, their contents a silent testament to innovation, collaboration, and the flow of history itself. They remind us that beneath every floorboard, behind every facade, the past waits patient and undisturbed until the day someone, with careful hands and curious mind, gently tugs aside the bricks and listens to the faint echo of cherries long buried, yet never forgotten.